All right, so this is our first head-to-head.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dispute that needs to be settled.
It does.
And we're going to settle it tonight.
Yeah, normally we agree about everything.
Normally. We're going to discuss the original Top Gun versus its sequel, Top Gun Maverick.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the better film?
Top Gun Maverick.
Clearly, the original Top Gun is the better film. I don't even know why I have to defend this argument, but that's what we're going to do. So we're going to have our arguments. We're going to make our cases, and then you guys can decide.
Of course, let us know in the comments below.
Which is the better film. Now, don't just come in here with your biases here. You're going to hear us out.
Yeah.
And then you're going to decide.
Yeah, make sure to
who makes the
comment
better argument
after you listen to us.
Yeah, correct.
Please.
Yes. So, where to begin?
Well, I guess we can begin with the plot. It's kind of simple because the first one has none.
I knew you were going to start with this. Now, I guess the plot of the original was too nuanced for you to really get.
Look,
Because
listen.
the original does have a plot.
Growing up, I had my cycle of movies that I go through. I saw Top Gun, but that was never in there. And I'll tell you why. Because the whole movie is a training montage.
That's correct. The movie's called Top Gun. It's about
I understand,
Top Gun.
but like I don't feel like just watching guys practice the whole movie. You know what I mean? Whereas the new one, that's what they're doing in it, but there's a goal in it. Like they're building up to a mission.
They are training for a rehash of Star Wars.
You're all clear, kid. Now let's blow this thing and go home.
I'm fine with it because it was a really well done rehash of Star Wars. So I'm good with that.
It was.
But
I'm not knocking that.
But my point is though, there was like a goal. Whereas at the end of the first one, we'll just tack this little side mission on at the end. And it's, what the fuck?
Because the original one, the goal was never about some random mission.
Right.
Some random enemy they were training to fight against. No, it was about them going through the academy, which I don't see. How is that not a story?
Look, I don't hate Top Gun. I don't hate the original. I still enjoy it. I'm just saying that the new one's better.
Right. And now, okay, you can make an argument that the stakes were higher in the new one in terms of the mission, right? Whereas in the original one, okay, yes, they're training. However, there's more death that occurs in the original film in the training than in the new one.
Sure.
That elevates the drama and the emotion beyond just aerial action sequences. Now you could say, like, I'm trying to look at the original Top Gun as a deep film. It's not deep, but I think there is more of an emotional connection to the original one than the new one. Okay, you could laugh, right? Okay, the only death that occurs in the new one is Iceman, and that's like...
That was very sad.
Yeah, I guess. That dude already had one foot out the door.
I know what you mean, though. No one on the team died.
No one on the team died,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that to me that hurt the stakes for me.
Look, what I'm about to say, you're going to see this as ammunition for your point of view, but I think that Top Gun, the original, is definitely a product of its time.
Of course it is.
And it's great. It definitely does have that slice of the 80s. To me, though, it hasn't aged as well.
Okay,
But...
whereas Top Gun Maverick feels like a Kaczynski film.
Well, okay, to steelman your argument a bit,
Yeah.
what I just said about how it's a product of its time, you can still say, though, it's not my cup of tea necessarily, but it's transcended time. You know what I mean? It's like a piece of pulp 80s that
Yes.
people...
I mean, you could say that of a lot of films from the 80s.
Sure, but that's one of them, though.
You know, that's one of them that I think it transcends.
Right.
Yeah.
And will the new one have that same power? I don't know. That's like yet
we'll
to be
find
seen.
out in 36 years or whatever.
Right. The new one, what that had going for it was audiences have just been starved for.
They were clamoring.
Well, they're starved for a normal fucking movie.
Yes,
and that's what they were given.
Solid action movies with a guy, Tom Cruise, who has pledged to give that to his audiences.
Hope you enjoy. We've made it for you.
Like the new one had that going for it. If it was handled by anyone else, it probably wouldn't have been handled as well.
No, we'd have gotten a legacy sequel like Indiana Jones 5.
Exactly.
It's called capitalism.
But because the team behind it really cared about the original and the audience and delivering a great experience, they pulled out all the stops. And yeah, I'm not saying Maverick was a bad movie by any means.
No, I know you liked it.
It's a great movie. It's fantastic. I just think the original captures the feeling of the world they built a little better in every regard.
I don't know, man. I think those are your nostalgia glasses talking.
Maybe, but I have watched that film consistently for many years.
But that's what I'm saying,
There
though.
are other films, though, I have watched from that time period where I've looked back and been like, that didn't age that well.
Like what?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you put me on the spot.
I just rewatched Top Gun a few months ago. I hadn't seen it in a while, but I'm definitely coming at it from an objective point of view because I was just never the biggest fan.
That's fair.
Didn't hate it. I never hated the movie. It just wasn't my...
Yeah.
I remember some of my friends, they loved that movie. They loved the jets. They love all that stuff.
It's more than just the jets, though.
No,
It's
as
the
a kid, though,
it's the whole vibe.
As a kid, though, that's like why your friends would like that movie.
Yeah.
Me, I was just, And then I got older. I was in my Tony Scott phase. You know, I'd watch True Romance all the time. I'd watch, some of his newer stuff like Man on Fire and...
All inferior.
Well, Crimson Tide. Like he was a great
movie.
filmmaker.
Great movie.
Yeah, he
Still
was like...
inferior to Top Gun.
Bullshit! I know this guy, Bobby!
Nobody ever talked about making a Crimson Tide sequel. The movie ended up being the highest grossing film of 1986. So it's not like the money wasn't there. A sequel would have made money.
Yeah.
But they were like, no, we're going to step away. We're going to do some other things. And it was just one of those films that just never
got back to it.
Never got back to it, which I was very happy about because they didn't need to get back to it. And then I guess enough time passed. No, they were talking about doing a sequel like for years. And then there were plans to do it until Tony Scott died. And they were like, okay, let's step back.
I remember that. They were kind of close in like the
They were
early
discussed.
2010s.
They were in talks to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
And then Tony Scott died, and then they were like, okay, let's step back. And then Kaczynski came on board, like 5 years later.
Now, okay.
And we got a very solid legacy sequel. Okay, so plot. Yes, I'll give you an edge on plot just because the first movie is a lot about the training. So they have to focus more on basically what Maverick is going through with his cockiness. And then Goose dying is just, it is not just a part of that movie, it is a part of our culture. Everybody knows about Goose.
I understand.
Talk to me, Goose.
Talk to me, Goose.
That is embedded in every true-blooded American's psyche. Okay? I don't think the new film is going to have anything like that
Talk to me, Goose.
for years to come.
That's why this argument is a little tough for me because yes, you do have the whole nostalgia angle on your side.
Okay, nostalgia, and it was just good. You're standing on the shoulder of giants. That's... Listen, I'm going to talk this up to win this as much as I can. But hey, listen, I will give you the edge on plot. For me, there were other things that were lost. And this gets into the next segment, I guess, which, let's talk about characters. Characters cast.
Okay, this is also what the original has over the remake. The characters are just way more memorable.
Of
and
course.
the relationships with each other are way more memorable.
Right.
They feel a little bit like stock characters in the new one. All the pilots are just kind of
They're all kind of...
They try to give them like the little personalities, and there's some funny moments here and there, but overall,
and
it's not going to have the staying power that the original
It's not like
does.
the original, the characters have like, they give them all these crazy personality quirks and traits. A lot of them are very similar, but they pop off the screen.
Yeah.
And that's something I didn't get in the new one.
That fun and that enthusiasm, that bright-eyed Reagan era.
Economy was good. Reagan years.
I mean, how could you go wrong?
It all comes through. Like, no, it does.
Yeah.
Like, it really does. The characters
like,
are good.
There were certain characters, like you get Hangman, right? He's supposed to be like the cocky,
He's the
like
Iceman.
right? But all of these characters, they're not in the Top Gun program. They're graduates of the Top Gun program. So these were the best already.
Yeah.
Right? They make that point of like, we're the best.
who are they gonna get to train
us?
Everyone here is the best there is. Who the hell are they going to get to teach us?
They didn't feel like they were the best of the best,
Right.
you know?
You have that one scene where they're all at the bar and they're like talking shit on each other, but it's like
it just felt forced.
It does feel forced.
And-
It's like, oh, they're supposed to be cocky, they're supposed to be badasses. That's how they are in the first one. So
Right,
you have to
but
have
I
these scenes with
believed it
banter
in the first one.
Yeah, you don't believe it. In
You get characters like Iceman coming in, Slider.
You're such a dickhead.
Yeah, I believe these guys are like gods in their own minds because look at them. Like, look at the way they're acting and their physiques and all that stuff. I'm not saying like you need to be like jacked to be a
well, more on that too.
Yeah, we'll get to that. When we get to playing with the boys, we'll get to that.
Yeah, there's a lot of playing with the boys
There
in the
is.
first one.
But Yes, for me, like the original one just had characters that pop more. And then, like, if you want to do a comparison of your radar ops guy, like Goose.
Well, the list is long but distinguished.
Well, so's my Johnson.
He was kind of a nerdy guy, but he was still confident.
Yeah.
He still had the confidence you would expect from a naval aviator of that stature, compared to, let's say, his counterpart in the new one, Bob.
What do they call you?
Bob? No, your call sign.
Bob.
That guy had no balls. He was like meek as fuck. It's like, how'd you get to this point?
Yeah.
I just didn't buy it. Like, he was funny and everything. I didn't. I
know.
liked his character, but it didn't jive with the world.
I mean, there's a scene in the movie where Hangman makes sort of a quasi-sexist joke towards the chick.
Or a man does not come back. No offense intended.
And then like Bob comes in like a white knight. He white knights for her, says a
Right.
stupid line.
Somehow, you always manage.
Dude, you're not gonna have sex with her, okay?
Right,
Just
right,
shut
right.
up.
Yeah, not happening. I did like Rooster a lot.
The dynamic between Rooster and Maverick was really good.
Very solid. Miles Teller,
Yeah.
fantastic. He's one of the most underrated actors.
They made him look like Goose too.
They made him look like Goose, and he's got the range as an actor to pull off just about anything that
Whiplash,
gets thrown at
man.
him.
Whiplash.
Whiplash is,
Yeah.
yeah, that added the emotional element that, you know, from the first one we get with his dad dying and all that. Bringing that into this one, into the new one, I thought worked really well. Then you get all your secondary characters outside the team. Or you were going to say something about Rooster?
No, I was going to say something about Maverick, actually. And this one, I already know what you're going to say to counter this. But I still feel like Tom Cruise, he's a much better actor now than he was when he was a kid. I'm not saying he was horrible in the first one, because he's not. But in this one, there's definitely a lot more subtleties to the character. And that could just be because he's older now. There's more to reflect on.
Yeah,
There's
and
lots of
that's-
things to that. But it still just made the film a little bit more enjoyable. And it made it so you can connect to him as a character a little bit more.
Sure, I'll give you that. I mean, in the first one, yes, he's in that like young, cocky state.
Yeah.
That's right. Nice. Man, I am dangerous.
He was kind of playing a lot of characters like that, I guess. I mean, what, like Cole Trickle.
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
Well, that's the difference between you and me. There's only so much I can do.
That's obvious.
Not much difference there in terms of portrayal, but I still think he pulled it out for the original one.
I'm not saying he was
You know,
horrible,
he's
but
not-
I think Tom Cruise actually is a good actor.
He is. I mean, that was like, what, a couple years before he got nominated for an Oscar.
Born on the 4th of July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like he doesn't have it in him. It's just a lot of times the roles he plays don't really lend to that emotional range that
But that's what I'm saying,
he's
though.
capable of.
In this film,
They gave that
because
to
of the
him
script,
more.
they gave it to him more.
yes,
So
and
you're
that's
able to-
fine. I'll give you that one.
And I just feel like just the way the sequel plays out, it's like a logical continuation to where Maverick would be in his
Right.
life.
Right.
And it wasn't cucked like Indiana Jones 5 or,
No,
or how Han
not at
Solo
all.
was in
It
Force
made
Awakens.
sense. It was a logical progression of the character where he would be.
And so because that was there and that was intact, it made it a more enjoyable experience to follow the character in this one as opposed to the first
What,
one.
you didn't like his intense acting when Goose died? And he was
he-
just sweating a lot and
Again.
just like fighting the tears back while Meg Ryan's
He's
losing it.
sweating, everything's backlit. There's that like fog in the background,
Beautiful.
that awesome Tony Scott
Absolutely
photography.
Beautiful.
No one can shoot like Tony Scott.
No.
And the original Top Gun is through and through a fucking Tony Scott movie.
Yeah.
And it feels like it.
Yeah.
Whereas the new one, I like Joseph Kosinski. I think he's a good filmmaker. But he doesn't have that stamp on things the way that Tony Scott does.
No, it's very, like, there are certain things about Kaczynski, like some of his films where you can kind of tell
Yeah.
he's got a style. The outliers are probably like Tron and Spiderhead. I don't know if you saw Spiderhead.
haven't seen it yet.
Miles Teller. Very different type of film for him. Very, very good though. The only thing about the new Top Gun film that felt like it was tied to the original was the opening, because it was shot in that Tony Scott style.
Kind of. Didn't look as good.
It didn't look as good with Danger Zone playing.
Right.
That was the only time during the film where I was like, this is through and through Top Gun.
Well, okay, so when I saw Top Gun,
Yeah.
I had like seriously the greatest time at the movies.
Yo, yeah, it was
that I've
fantastic.
had in a long time.
Of course.
It was over. I leaned over to my wife and I was like, that was fucking good.
Yeah.
I was just kind of like on cinematic cloud 9, and I hadn't felt like that in a while. And then I remember we were like on our way somewhere, and I actually text you because right around the time that movie came out is like when I like right around the time I met you.
Yeah.
And I texted you and I was like, dude, have you seen Top Gun yet? And you were like, yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
I was like, dude, that was amazing. You were like, it was good.
Okay.
We saw it a second time, and then we
talked about it, and
yeah.
we discussed it, and yeah, I was very enthusiastic about it. I tried to take a step back and look at it objectively. Like, was it good? Yeah, it was fucking great. Yeah, okay, cool. I wasn't like, oh my god, like.
I was though.
Yeah, and that's great.
And I've watched it quite a few times. Like I saw it like 3 times, I think, in theaters, and
yeah.
I watched it a couple times on UHD Blu-ray, and it's an amazing.
I've only seen it twice, 2 times in theaters, and I'm due for another viewing. Now, the original I've seen, I can't even count how many times I've seen it.
Okay, so that's the other thing about the original. Even as a kid, I knew the movie was fucking gay.
Gives me a hard on. Don't tease me.
What, you don't like playing with the boys?
The song comes up, and first of all, Kenny Loggins. All right, okay, Danger Zone, great song. The guy's
Great
got like
song.
the guy.
They still play it on the radio
The
today.
guy's got
You know?
like, he kind of sounds like a chick when he sings, right? So he's got that like high-pitched voice. So he's singing the song, and then you see these shirtless dudes in slow motion.
Except Goose.
Yeah, all these guys just kind of glistening in the sunlight.
Fucking Slider, just giving his pose. Listen, they needed something for the women.
I don't think it was for the women, dude.
I'll defend it. Okay, being that we're bringing up playing with the boys, let's talk about the music a little bit.
All right, the soundtrack selection in the second one, not good.
No.
This is what helps your point, is what makes it the product of the 80s is because of that awesome soundtrack. All those great, memorable songs
Yeah,
that
you're
are still
talking
played
about
on the radio today.
the Oscar-winning, Golden Globe-winning Berlin song, Take My Breath Away, that,
I don't know, man. Lady
in my
Gaga's
opinion, is
better.
the greatest song ever written.
You don't like the Lady Gaga song?
That song will never be remembered by anyone. Trash. It brought down the end of the film for me. That song was terrible.
So the song,
I'm sorry.
The song is not good, but the melody of the song is good, and interwoven into the score is actually very good.
All right.
It's not a good song.
No. The entire soundtrack to the original was fantastic. Give or take, Playing with the Boys.
Gives me a hard on.
Replay value. And of course the orchestration, the theme.
The Top Gun theme by Harold Faltermeyer is probably one of the best film themes ever written.
Yeah.
And this is coming from someone
it's
who...
carried into the new film.
Yeah.
And then Hans Zimmer got his hands on it.
Hans Zimmer, Lauren Balfe, that team got their hands on it.
Okay. They did some interesting things with it that I liked, but for the most part, it's a rehash. They're not breaking.
No, I
ton of new
don't even
ground.
think it's a rehash in the sense that they use the theme, but
Yeah.
for me, it's like a Hans Zimmer clone kind of knockoff score. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like they could have gone farther with it to making it more
Yes.
like Top Gun.
I would have liked to have heard something new but I get, it's not like every day you just come up with an iconic theme.
Well, no, it's not the theme. It's also the style. Like, the movie starts and you hear the theme. Like, the Paramount logo comes up. It's a re-recording of the theme, but it sounds very much like how they recorded the score back in the 80s, and it's great.
Yeah.
But then the rest of the score is just kind of generic,
generic,
modern-day
yeah,
action
yeah.
music score. And I feel like they could have scored the whole movie the way that they scored that opening cue.
Yes.
That's how they should have done it.
If they had done that, I think that would have pulled me in a little further.
Yeah.
In terms of feeling that nostalgia rush. Because it's like, who's going to see this movie?
Yeah, it's us.
It's us.
Yeah.
It's the people that grew up with the original, whether
Yeah.
you were like a big fan of it or not. It still had its impact on the culture. Because
There's
of,
no denying that.
because of the theme song and the music and the style and all that. And some of that was in the new film, but a lot of it wasn't. That was the disconnect for me.
Okay.
I'm not looking for like a direct copy of the original, but I want it to feel like it's in the same universe.
That is what I appreciated about this one, though. It has elements from the first one because, yes, they are training like they are training in the first one. So
Yeah.
there are definitely shadows
but it's a different
of
world,
that original.
It's a different time. I get that.
But they did a great job at like making it feel familiar, but doing its own thing. And like the way that they made it its own thing is there's an actual mission that they're building up to. You know, the stakes are set for the mission.
No, someone's not coming back from this.
Someone's not coming home from this. That's like the line. In the movie.
And then everyone comes home, and it's like, okay.
But
that
they're
annoyed me.
training for the mission, and when they execute the mission, you're kind of like,
oh yeah, it's a fantastic sequence.
that's what I'm saying.
They build
like,
up to it.
They did a great job building up to it.
There's no denying that.
So, and then the first one, it's just like they get their
missions
awards,
are
and
kind
they're
of
like,
an afterthought.
oh, but, yeah, and they just
the mission exists to allow Maverick to
overcome his demons,
to fulfill his character arc. That's why it's there, and for him and Iceman to get their mutual respect.
You can be my wingman anytime. Bullshit. You can be mine.
That's why it's there.
Right.
And okay, we need a climax to the film. We need some stakes. That's fine. I'll give you that point. We're also leaving out some important things in both films. Love interest.
Okay, I'm sorry, but Kelly McGillis, even when I was a kid, I was like, her?
Her? She didn't bother me at all in the original.
Oh my God. She's just, I don't want to be mean.
Charlie?
She's a good actress. Like, she's really good in Witness. I'm not saying she's not, she's good in The Accused, but
yeah, I have no problem with her.
I guess when your actress is like 2 inches taller than your leading man,
you don't know that. You don't know that unless you.
I don't know, man. She just feels like bigger than him. I don't know. It was never a good pairing.
Okay, listen, Tom Cruise, Short King. You can't knock the guy for.
I'm not knocking. Like, look, I'm not knocking him for his height.
They should have cast someone who was like 5'2".
Yes, like
yeah.
You
okay.
watch Back to the Future, and they don't. You know, the chick that plays Jennifer, she's like 5'1", because that makes sense. You know,
right? Fine, but they had their trickery. They got around that. I mean, it wasn't 100% hidden, but I never had a problem with her. I felt the connection between the two of them.
No.
Really?
No.
Because Jennifer Connelly came in the new one, and I was like, who the hell
Jennifer
is this?
Connelly's presence in the movie is just like, oh, we need to give him a love interest. So they throw her in there for sure.
That's how I felt about her in this one.
But first of all, she's way more attractive.
Connelly?
Oh my God, yeah.
There was a
She's
time.
She's aging like a fine wine.
Okay, she definitely aged better than McGillis. That's not even a question. But there was a point, I don't know when this was, I was looking at Jennifer Connelly, and then I was like, oh, her eyebrows are too big. And then I can't unsee it now. And now I'm just like, I look at her, and all I see are eyebrows.
I also had to trust her.
I don't know why.
Like in all of her movies, or just that movie?
No. This goes back years.
Oh, okay.
This probably goes back to like the Requiem days.
All right, I see.
And she was very attractive in that movie, but I just like always look at her and be like, the eyebrows. I don't know what it. That's just a personal thing. I'm not.
I don't know.
I still think she's very attractive.
Okay, I just said that throwing Jennifer Connelly in, that was just kind of we need a love interest in this movie, so they threw her in there. That's the same thing as the first one. And I remember there's an interview with Jerry Bruckheimer, like he's talking about the original Top Gun and how they can like fit in a girl. Yeah. And then he talked to the Navy or the Air Force and was like, oh, we're having this problem with the script, trying to figure out this character.
Yeah.
And the Navy,
civilian contractor.
They are the ones that gave him the idea of like, oh, there are these people that work for the RAND Corporation, and so she can come in there and like advise them.
You know, when we did Top Gun, they introduced us to our female lead. We had a girl who was outside the military, and the admiral of the base said, well, you know, I know somebody could work much better, and it's an advisor for the RAND Corporation who grades them on their military operations and goes out on the carriers and tells them if their performance is up to what it should be.
That's also a bullshit excuse to give the character a love interest.
And in the new one now, this is like his on and off ex, who's a bartender, who just happens to still live in Miramar. Like
she's waiting for him to come back.
Right. That didn't do it for me. And then like she has the kid, and you're like, oh, is this?
Thank God they didn't do that.
They didn't do that crap.
Thank God.
Right. I don't know. I kind of wish they had alluded just any kind of conclusion to what happened with Kelly McGillis's character.
They needed a scene where they were like, what happened to her? And Maverick could have just said,
she got fat. She got fat. I had to trade up. She hit her expiration date. Like, I'm not saying it was 100% necessary. It's just like, I just, you know, we get a little closure on some other characters. You know, we get Iceman.
It's always cool when you see a sequel and they kind of reference what came before. Just questions that you might have in your head.
Right.
They're
it's like
good at.
Over 30 years has gone by. It's like, okay, well, you learn that Meg Ryan's character dies.
Right.
They, of course, reference Iceman because that was his rival who ends up becoming his friend. You know, it's like, okay, maybe they might have touched on the girl he ended up with at the end of the movie, but they don't. And okay, not a big deal, but I was wondering.
I was fine with it because I was
It's not
just
like they were
never
going
a
to bring
fan
her
of her
back. They didn't have to
anyways.
bring her back. They could have had her die, or she left him for someone else, or he couldn't get his shit together.
They were so looks-wise mismatched, and I feel like they had no chemistry. It felt so tacked on and lame in the original.
You know, that's just like your opinion, man.
I don't know. I had no problem with them. And I liked how she was actually part of the plot. She was an instructor. Right, like not okay. She wasn't like integral to the plot.
Again,
but
it's
they
like
worked her way. They worked her in a way that
they made an effort.
sense.
They made an effort to work her in.
In this new one, it's like she's just like a bartender. She's not actually part of anything going on. He just goes to see her, like a bunch of times, and then he helps her like deliver a boat.
She teaches him how to sail.
Yeah, sure.
It's a good
I
scene.
mean, that was a good. Yeah, it was a good scene. I'm not knocking the scene itself. It's just
they have good chemistry.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling the chemistry. I didn't buy the chemistry.
If they played "Take My Breath Away" during their scenes, would that have been better?
It would have helped.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the movie didn't have anything like that. And the iconic scene from the original where he sings "Righteous Brothers." I mean, the new one was kind of missing that. You know, you get Great Balls of Fire, and then they did a little bit of that in the new one. They carry that over with Rooster, but it just didn't have that feel.
So what makes a great film then? Like, do you think that?
I think it's the sum of all its parts.
So I understand, but are all great films just a product of their time, and that's part of what makes it great?
Well,
you know?
yes and no. I think a product of its time. It was very successful when it came out.
It
commercially.
was, but I don't. And that's never a good argument for me because
I'm not, let me finish. It was very successful when it came out, so that made it good then. That's one way of looking at it. And then it's like, as the years go on, do people keep referencing it? Do they keep talking about it? Do they keep watching it?
They do.
So, in my mind, then yes, it stood the test of time.
Right. And so the question is the new one going to stand the test of time the way the original stood the test of time?
And I don't know. Are people going to look back at Maverick and are they going to quote that movie the way the original is quoted? Are they going to be playing that Lady Gaga song on the radio the way the Berlin song is still played?
Yeah.
You still hear it on the radio today?
All of those things help the memorability factor, I think, for the original. But at the end of the day...
Which is a better film.
Right. And that's what it comes down to. There's lots of movies from the past that I enjoy because of the pop culture impact that
Sure,
it
but
had.
that doesn't necessarily make it...
Right. And so I guess for me,
film.
Top Gun, the original, never swept me away with that. It never took my breath away. But
it never took your breath away.
But the sequel, on the other hand, perhaps maybe one day it will be fondly remembered because it could be one of them films that saved cinema. You know,
yes,
because
well, that's the thing. Maverick also has some other things going for it. Whereas the original, when it came out, it was actually poorly received. Not poorly, but mixed.
Very mixed reviews.
Mixed reviews from critics.
Yes.
But audiences liked it, word of mouth, and the movie exploded.
Yeah.
And it became the highest grossing movie of the year. Maverick was praised not by just audiences but by critics as well.
Yeah,
and it made $1 billion.
I'm not even going to use that as defense for my argument because who gives a shit about what critics think?
Right, but I think it stands a better chance, and like you said, like it helped reignite cinema.
It did. We were coming out of COVID, so there was already a lull because of that. But even before COVID, movies suck, and that's why we have this channel. I mean,
right.
movies suck now.
And there was no real great reason to go back to the movies to see something, you know, on the big screen. And Tom Cruise came along, and there were so many offers for this movie, for Maverick, to be just released streaming. And he said no to all of them.
Stuck
he
to
was
his
like,
guns.
Nope, this movie needs to come out in the theaters.
Yeah.
And it's better for it, and it's better for cinema. So I think it'll be remembered for that.
That's pretty good.
It is pretty good, and that's no small thing. It'll just be remembered for different reasons, I think, than the original will be remembered for.
Obviously, that's fine.
And
but
that's fine.
I still think I still think that it might not have the pop cultural impact that the original did. It still just is a better film. It's a much more gripping film. Goose dying in the original, yeah, good scene. His performance,
remember that
good
time
scene.
nobody died in the new one? That Iceman doesn't count.
No, I'm not even going to say that. No one dies in it. You don't always need a character to die to have to make it impactful.
Okay, yeah.
Han Solo did not need to die in Force Awakens, but they do
it can still be suspenseful without someone dying.
Yes.
I agree.
So I'm fine with that. You know, yes, I get what you're saying though. Goose's death is like one of the biggest cinematic deaths of all time. Like it's so tragic. You know, I get it.
But he was so lovable.
This didn't need it. In fact, if there was like a death, then people would just be comparing it to.
Yeah, and who would they have killed at that point in the film that you would have given a shit about?
But that's what but like there's that line that Tom Cruise said again where he's like, someone's not coming home from this.
Yeah.
And then the fact
but then you're thinking like the only character who could possibly die in this that would have any emotional impact on the audience would have been Rooster.
Yeah.
Right, but they're not going to kill.
But they kind of use that. They kind of set it up that okay, this is legacy sequel. Things are kind of being mirrored in this one that are in the original. So they actually use that as like a way to kind of
like
keep
Rooster's not coming back.
Yeah, or some. Yeah, exactly. They're playing on that.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And that's fine.
And it's actually genuinely heartwarming at the end when they come back.
They both come back, and everyone's alive. Now, what I thought was completely unearned at the end was fucking Hangman coming in and saving the day.
Well, that's a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina.
I don't know. The ending wasn't totally there for me.
Once Maverick kind of proved to all of them that he can do it himself, like the
that was badass.
That's a great scene.
It is. That scene is probably the best scene in the whole movie.
It's so good.
And then they go into the whole actually doing it, and then
Which
that's
is
when
also good.
The tension really ramps up.
Yes.
No, I'm not. You're right.
It's got like the classic summer blockbuster structure,
structurally
but it's
a
done
better
so
film.
well.
But I still think, just from a vibe standpoint or the cultural impact of the original film, I think outweighs that for me.
If you're saying what movie is going to be remembered more than the other, and if that is the barometer for what is a great movie, then that's tough because okay, fine, that does.
Well,
have
how do
that
you
going
argue
for
that?
it.
I guess we're gonna have to leave it up to you guys.
Yeah, guys, let us know. What do you guys think?
I already know I'm going to lose this one.
You made some good arguments, and like I am agreeing with you about a lot of what you're saying.
Yeah, so did you, though.
But the sequel really surprised me.
Oh, me too.
I enjoyed the hell out of it. It's probably my favorite movie from last year. It's one of those movies that you think is going to be overrated, but it's not.
Right. No, it was not overrated at all.
It lived up to the hype.
It definitely lived up to the hype. But if you really want to have a good time, go watch the original.
Bullshit.
And then watch Maverick.
Maverick was a little less gay, though.
Fair.